adhering to the protocols that we have put in place to manage COVID-19. The ANC must take this time, and it does, salute all frontline workers for their commitment and their sacrifice in the fight against COVID-19. Araba opeleng diata for those who have made sacrifices. We remember all South Africans too who have succumbed to COVID-19 as we redouble our effort to contain this terrible pandemic. Our second priority, comrade, is to defend our democratic gain. The advent of democracy in 1994 and the progress that has been made thus far to build a united and inclusive nation over the last 28 years stand as the greatest achievement of the people of South Africa. South Africa has, over the course of several years, experienced various actions that have the effect of subverting our constitutional democracy, its institutions, and the socio-economic advances that we have made. These actions include blatant acts of state capture and criminality described in the report of the Commission on Inquiry into State Capture, the Zondo report, the concerted campaign of public violence and destruction that took place in July last year, as well as ongoing acts of theft, destruction, and obstruction of infrastructure, including communication and logistical networks. One of the resolutions of our 54th conference was to establish a judicial commission of inquiry into allegations of state capture. We welcome the submission and release of the first part of the Commission's report and look forward to the completion of the Commission's work by the end of February 2022. The ANC will support government in effecting the measures that are required to eliminate conditions and conduct that enable state capture and systemic corruption. We will put in place mechanisms to process any parts of the Commission's report that pertain to the organization, its employees or members. We will also look at how the Commission's recommendations can help to enhance the fundamental renewal and the rebuilding of our movement. We call on all South Africans to engage with the Commission's report and to be part of the national effort to put state capture behind us. We want this to be a national effort so that all of us are collectively involved in putting state capture behind us. We call on, therefore, on all of us to be part of the effort to build an ethical, capable developmental state and a society governed by the values of our democratic constitution and the rule of law. The security and stability of our country was directly challenged by the deliberate, coordinated, and well-planned incidents of violence and destruction that took place in parts of KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng in July last year. It is important once again to express our deepest condolences to the over 300 families who lost loved ones in the course of these tragic events. The ANC applauds the actions of ANC structures and ordinary South Africans who worked together through peaceful means to prevent the spread of violence and looting to many other parts that were targeted. We commend the members of the South African Police Service, the SANDF, and other state agencies who under difficult conditions worked to restore order and prevent further loss of life. These events underline the need to continuously guard against counter-revolution and work to ensure that counter-revolution cannot and must never find fertile ground here in South Africa. We call on government to strengthen the ability of the state to prevent and respond effectively to such development. Non-racialism is a fundamental principle of the ANC and lies at the heart of our objective to build a South African nation with a common patriotism and loyalty in which the cultural, linguistic, and religious diversity of the people is recognized. And as Comrade Leighton Zimande, General Secretary of the SACP, said, it is only the African National Congress that can ensure that this objective is achieved. No other organization in our country can do so. This is an ideal that many people have struggled for and died for. Sadly, this principle is being eroded both in our organization and in broader society. A painful example of this retrogressive tendency was the racism and prejudice manifest in the tragic events that occurred in eThekwini during the outbreak of the violence in July. We pass our condolences to those of our compatriots who lost their lives needlessly during those events in Phoenix, which had racial undertones. We must unite the broadest cross-section of our people, of people in opposition to social ills, and opposition rather, to social ills such as racism and other forms of prejudice. The ANC must do significantly more to ensure that non-sexism becomes a lived reality in our country. All manifestations and consequences of patriarchy, of toxic masculinity, from the feminization of poverty, physical and psychological abuse, and undermining of self-confidence to the exclusion of women from positions of authority, leadership, and power must be eliminated. Women and children in South Africa continue to be among the worst affected by fear, intimidation, and violence. Our efforts to eradicate gender-based violence are not sufficient to deal with the extent of this scourge. We must move with greater agency to close gaps in the criminal justice system. We must strengthen support to survivors and effectively implement prevention efforts. We urge members of society, especially men and boys, to become better allies in the fight against gender-based violence and femicide. Our third priority is to accelerate the fundamental renewal and the rebuilding of the African National Congress. A strong, effective, and united ANC is crucial to the effort to build a united, non-sexist, non-racial, democratic, and prosperous South Africa. When the Liberation Movement, governing party, and one of the strongest forces for social and economic transformation is divided and ineffective, the whole country suffers. All genuine leaders and members of the ANC are agreed on the need for thoroughgoing renewal and rebuilding of the African National Congress. The task of fundamental renewal is made more urgent by the loss of popular standing, support, and trust that our movement has experienced over several years. The 54th conference asserted that renewal is about building the ANC's resilience, enhancing its transformative and governance capacity, and its ability to adapt to changing situations so that it can continue to organize and to lead our people. Renewal and rebuilding will take time, and it will also take a lot of diligent work. There will be successes, but there will also be setbacks, and we should expect and confront resistance from those who may well be opposed to renewal. We should endure the pain that this entails, and ultimately, we will emerge as an organization better placed to serve the people of South Africa. This calls, comrades, for a return to revolutionary discipline. It also calls for strict adherence to the culture of democratic centralism. And this means that once the organization has made a decision, members must abide by that decision. Once upper structures, discipline once upper structures have pronounced and decided on matters, whether they are right or wrong, lower structures are bound to act in accordance with such decisions and pronouncements. That is how the African National Congress has always worked. Departure from this practice constitutes indiscipline, and this is what we need to root out. Let there be no misunderstanding, comrades. We must also build unity within our movement. But we should not misunderstand that building unity is building unity at all costs, to the detriment and to the disregard of the fundamental principles of the African National Congress. Nor does it mean unity in defense of wrong or corrupt practices. Unity is tshwanetse Impa ibe unity that is based on principle. Iskaba unity just for the sake ya hore go tswelle pele le the acts of corruption. While the ANC has begun to give effect to these resolutions aimed at restoring the standing and integrity of our organization, we must all agree that we need to do much more. One of the areas in which the ANC has taken clear action is to require that members who are formally charged with acts of corruption and other serious charges must immediately step aside from all leadership positions in the ANC, in our legislatures or other government structures, pending the finalization of their matters. To provide sharper focus to renewal and rebuilding of the movement, the National Executive Committee has decided to set up a commission to develop a clear roadmap for the movement towards the 120th anniversary of the African National Congress in 2032. This ANC Renewal Commission will be tasked to develop a clear vision of 2032, which described the desired state of the country and the ANC in 10 years' time. It will develop a roadmap towards Vision 2032 for adoption at the 55th National Conference in December 2022. Comrades, our fourth priority is to build a capable developmental state for effective service delivery. The developmental state should guide economic development and effectively use state resources to meet the needs of our people. Our developmental state must be capable of leading, guiding, and mobilizing all social partners towards achieving national objectives and goals. There must be sufficient capacity in the public service to deliver all the basic needs that our people require, such as health, housing, education, and other government services. We will continue to implement a range of measures to strengthen local government. And this time round, the focus on local government is going to be greater and it's going to be much more focused, and we will utilize our various structures for continued evaluation as well as assessment of the work that we do in our local government. And this includes the mechanisms we have put in place to choose capable comrades as councillors, as mayors, and senior office bearers with the requisite knowledge, with the requisite skills and experience to serve our community. In addressing people's most pressing concerns, the ANC will work to ensure that all residents in municipalities where we govern have reliable and affordable electricity, water, and sanitation. We will serve as an effective opposition in municipalities where we do not govern and ensure that the council gives attention to the concerns of the residents. As a governing party at national level, we will work with provinces and municipalities on a massive campaign to ensure construction and maintenance of water and sanitation infrastructure. Wherever I went in the province in the past few days, the issue of roads, infrastructure, and water was raised continuously. And this is what we are going to be giving attention to from national to provincial and local government level. Is it possible to be done? The answer is yes. We need to be more focused, conserve our resources, ensure that acts of corruption are eliminated, and that whenever we pay for any form of infrastructure, we don't overpay, we are not overcharged, and there are no people who are going to siphon the public resources that should go to those infrastructure programs. That is what we are going to be focusing on. We are also going to eliminate unspeakable indignity and failure that continues to dog communities where our people live, where there's shortage of sanitation and water. Through the district development model, we are aligning the work of national, provincial, and local government to ensure that planning and budgeting is properly coordinated and service is properly improved. The ANC supports the establishment of the Border Management Authority, which has now been established, which we believe will contribute significantly to improving security on our borders and management of immigration in our country. We urge government to publish the final critical skills list and to finalize legislation providing certain occupations and businesses that must be set aside for South Africa. Our fifth priority is to continue to work for a better Africa and a better world. The ANC is committed to advance the cause of national liberation, development, world peace, disarmament, environmentally sustainable development, and accordingly the ANC will continue to play an active role in mobilizing progressive forces globally, strengthening our relations with progressive organizations, including former liberation movements, and engaging in campaigns of solidarity and the attainment of better and more just world. The ANC will focus international work on peace, development, and reconstruction on the continent. We will play a stronger role in establishing and sustaining party-to-party links in countries that are striving to entrench democracy. We support ongoing efforts to find African solutions to African problems in resolving the conflicts in Mozambique, in the Cabo Delgado area, in Lesotho, in the Kingdom of Eswatini, in the Sudan, and in Ethiopia. We must continue to pursue the reform of the United Nations and Security Council. The ANC repeats its condemnation of ongoing illegal settlements and state-sponsored settler violence against Palestinians and threats of illegally annexing more Palestinian land, including on the Golan Heights. Our support for the people of Cuba remains unwavering, and we urge the United States to lift all remaining restrictions and re-engage with the Cuban government to normalize relations between the two nations. We reiterate our long-standing solidarity with the Sahrawi Republic and the Polisario Front. The ANC notes with concern the recent developments that have necessitated the people of the Sahrawi Republic resuming their armed struggle in response to renewed incursions and attacks by Morocco. In line with our priorities for the year, all ANC structures have a number of priorities to undertake for 2022. Our first task, comrades, is to work for the fundamental renewal and rebuilding of the movement. That is a task that all of us, through our various structures, must embrace and take up. We must continue to work for the restoration of the integrity of the ANC so that we earn the confidence and the respect of South Africa. The ANC will continue to strengthen organizational discipline and address misbehavior and corruption within our ranks. Our principal program to implement the step-aside rule will continue. We must build and strengthen ANC branches through clear programs of action, which should include, for instance, political education of branch members on the aims and objectives of the ANC, the duties of ANC members, the role of ANC branches, and key policy positions of the African National Congress. Secondly, an annual program of community outreach, which includes, by every branch, the active participation of branch members in school governing bodies, community policing forums, civic associations, sports bodies, ward committees, and other organs of community life to promote the ANC's transformation agenda at local level. Another important task is to have a program to support our ward councillors and ward committees to solve community problems and hold regular report-back meetings to keep community members informed on progress with regard to issues of service delivery, as well as challenges that members of our community face. Another important task that must be taken up by our branches is gender empowerment, making sure that we rid our own structure and community of patriarchy, and that we empower the women of our country, and we make sure that gender-based violence and femicide in the communities where we operate as branches is eliminated. We must also enable, another important task, is to enable young people to play key roles in the leadership positions of our movement, and empower young people to be able to, yes, be the true leaders of tomorrow, enabling them to occupy key positions of leadership. Our second task is to mobilize social partners to urgently finalize the social compact that I was talking about, to reduce unemployment, poverty, and inequality. This must be seen as a task that must be taken up also by the African National Congress. Structures of the ANC must ensure that all partners, social partners including business, labor, and civil society, forge this compact to deal decisively with economic exclusion, poverty, unemployment, and inequality. All municipalities working in the context of the district development model must develop clear local economic development plans that focus on the competitive advantage of different regions of our country in areas such as tourism, agriculture, agro-processing, manufacturing, and mining. ANC structures must actively campaign against local forums that hold infrastructure and development projects to ransom for tenders and jobs. It is the task of ANC structures to do so. ANC branches, comrades, must not sit by when structures such as Amadelukbona create a lot of havoc where our branches operate and terrorize businesses and take over infrastructure programs. It is the ANC branch that must take up that struggle together with our other structures at the regional and provincial level. We cannot and should not be neutralized and even be defeated by such structures that are perpetrating illegal activities, particularly because some of those who participate in this forums are members of various communities that our people live in, where our branches operate in. Our third task is to defend the gains of our democracy so that national democratic revolution is not undermined. The ANC Constitution enjoins us to defend the democratic gains of the people and to advance towards a society in which government is freely chosen by the people of our country. In pursuance of this objective, ANC structures must accelerate and intensify the renewal and rebuilding of the ANC and act decisively to ensure that those who are guilty of corruption, ill discipline, and factionalism and undermining democracy find no home in the African National Congress. And comrades, this is an important issue. Sometimes we tolerate people who perpetrate acts of indiscipline, and we close a blind eye to indiscipline that is blatant, that is perpetrated in our presence, and we look the other way. Acts of indiscipline, comrades, must be acted on with immediate effect without any fear or favor. Sometimes we even hear in ANC meetings where someone stands up and assaults a female member of the African National Congress. And we as a structure close a blind eye and do not take any action immediately against such members. And I am saying that such acts and other acts of indiscipline must be a thing of the past. If we want to be an organization that is effective, we must act against indiscipline. Motho tshwantse gore a tsebe gore ha entse ntho e tswileng tseleng. They have defined themselves outside of the African National Congress. O te tsebe wena, ka bo wena gore once you have done something like that, and I even made an example the other day, ke re hanka emella ka beta comrade nomvula kampama really meeting kapo really kai. I must know gore a ke sa le member ya ANC. I must know that. If in an ANC meeting ke sa kwane le national chairperson, be ke monka ka di face, be re tshwarana ka di washing, I must immediately know gore go fedile ka nna go ANC. A ke sa le member ya ANC. Hanka utswa tšhelete ya setšhaba, ke tshwantse ke te tsebe gore ka nnete monyako o bulegile, a ke sa le member ya ANC. So comrades, we must be clear about the issue of discipline. We must become a disciplined organization. Re tsebe gore there are certain things that cannot be done. There are certain things that the African National Congress is never going to tolerate. That there are certain things which once you have done, wena ka wena o tipulele monyako, ore awa ke sentse ke atoa, a ke sa le motho wa mo. That is what we should inculcate as a culture amongst us. And I know sometimes we weaken, sometimes we flag, sometimes, yes, there's resistance and there's slow movement. That is the nature of organizations. But our renewal process means that, comrades, we must redouble. ANCA yabo John Langalebale le Dube, ANCA yabo Walter Sisulu, yabo Mama Lillian Goy. Let us cleanse the African National Congress and make the ANC the home of our people once again. Comrades, which is making people to move away from us. Kaubani, we tolerate indiscipline. For anybody, and then we allow it to go on. And people look at that. They look at that and say, what type of people are these? What type of an organization is this, where these types of things are tolerated? So I am saying, as far as we are concerned, as the NEC, and as far as I am concerned as well as president, here this time round, comrades, acts of indiscipline, we must act on them. We have to act on them. We better excise that finger rather than in the end have that rotting finger completely poison the whole body. That is what the African National Congress needs to do. So, comrades, If we can do that, if we can achieve that, we will endear ourselves to our communities. Our people will see that we are serious about rebuilding the ANC. So therefore, we need to be seen to be serious about the process of rebuilding, repositioning, and renewing the ANC. Our branches must be deeply rooted in communities and play a leading role in the development of an active, informed, and politically conscious citizenry, capable of acting as the bulwark against any effort to undermine the gains of our democracy. We must work tirelessly to ensure maximum unity of our alliance and all progressive forces. We must strengthen the alliance. We must, yes, reconfigure our alliance so that it works better. I'd like to thank the General Secretary of the SACP, the President of COSATU, for delivering these very powerful and positive messages on the birthday of the ANC. Ke a le leboga. Mamo takaneti, the messages that you delivered are the types that will strengthen us. As in for the previous messages did not. I'm saying these ones start today are very, very forward-looking and revolutionary messages. Thank you very much for that. Aiba, if we were going to cut the cake further to the PC, I was going to reserve a very big piece for both of you. Next time, make it a nice ANC cake. All members must support the efforts by the democratic government to restructure and reform our law enforcement agencies to ensure that they effectively discharge their mandate to defend our constitutional democracy professionally, independently, and without any fear or favor. We are in the process of reforming our law enforcement agencies, our security sector, so that it is better positioned to defend the gains of our democracy. We must be proud that these are the people, men and women, who are going to defend this democracy that our people fought for. Our fourth task is to promote nation building and progressive values. ANC structures at every level must work to entrench progressive values such as non-racialism, non-sexism, and respect for human rights and democracy. We must lead popular campaigns for the eradication of backward tendencies such as tribalism, patriarchy, and homophobia. The ANC must continue to actively campaign against gender-based violence and child abuse and ensure perpetrators face the full might of the law. Yesterday, as I addressed the Youth League, I said, working together with SASCO, we must see the ANC Youth League active in our campuses to ensure that gender-based violence that is often taking place in our campuses is brought to an end. The rape against female students in our campuses is brought to an end. Our campuses must be a repository of knowledge dissemination rather than abuse against women and children. We must continuously raise awareness of the impact of gender-based violence on individuals, families, and communities. Consistent efforts must be made to support victims and survivors of gender-based violence and hold perpetrators, no matter who they are, to account. Our fifth task is to address social ills such as alcohol and drug abuse. Communities must work with government to ensure the establishment of sufficient support and diversionary programs available for at-risk youth through more community, recreational, sport, and educational facilities. ANC structures must lead these efforts, as must run education and awareness progress about the dangers of substance abuse. Our sixth task, comrades, is to promote vaccination against COVID-19. Structures of the ANC and the broader democratic movement must lead campaigns to disseminate more and accurate information about COVID-19, its causes, its efficacy, and the efficacy of vaccines throughout our communities. We must drive efforts to combat vaccine hesitancy and urge, as I said, people to be vaccinated and go through their booster shots as they are going to become more and more available. Our seventh task is to strengthen international solidarity. ANC members and structures should undertake campaigns to express solidarity with oppressed people in Western Sahara, in Palestine, in Cuba, and across the world in line with our values of respect for human rights, social justice, and equality. Now, this is also important, comrades. If we remember the various pillars of our struggle, the international pillar was so important because it was people from other countries and other lands who mounted campaigns against apartheid, who demonstrated support for us without even knowing us, without even having met us. And that was effective in bringing apartheid to its knees. And so we call upon members of and structures of the ANC, let us embark on these campaigns. The people of Palestine, the people of Sahrawi must see us as the African National Congress campaigning for their rights, for their self-determination, as though what is happening to them is happening to us. This is the culture of the African National Congress. Many thousands of South African families have lost loved ones to COVID-19 over the past year. Our own movement has lost many activists. We've lost many veterans and stalwarts due to COVID-19. We extend our sincerest condolences to their families and friends. The movement recalls and honors the immeasurable contribution that many of those who have departed have made. And I just cite the most recent because he is the most recent that we lost, and that was the immeasurable contribution made by the late Archbishop Emeritus Desmond Tutu in the fight for our liberation and since the advent of democracy. We honor him, we applaud his legacy, and we thank him for what he contributed. Archbishop Tutu was with us on the streets. He gave us support during the darkest days of apartheid and continued to serve as a moral compass for our young democracy. His legacy must be a shining example, urging all South Africans to be more humane, to always be principled and work ceaselessly to achieve a better life for all. We must draw courage and inspiration for the lives of this giant and many other giants that have departed, stalwarts and veterans of our movement, on the work for unity and solidarity that they perform. Guided by the priorities and the tasks we have identified for the year ahead, the National Executive Committee has declared 2022 as the year of unity, renewal, to defend and advance South Africa's democratic gain. That is our theme for this year. Now, let me end by saying the tasks that have been identified are the tasks, comrades, which if we all participate in, if all our structures, yes, the ANC Women's League, ANC Youth League, the ANC Veterans League, our provinces, our regions, and all our structures, if we all participate in all and make sure that we execute this task, the ANC will be completely renewed and repositioned and rebuilt without any doubt. And these tasks are achievable. These are tasks that we can embark on. On the birthday of the African National Congress, this is the day when all of us must recommit ourselves throughout the length and the breadth of the country and say we are recommitting ourselves to the African National Congress, and we are going to execute all these tasks, because it is when the ANC executes these tasks that we reposition our country as well. It is when the ANC embarks on all these tasks that South Africa begins to be turned around, and the challenges that our country is facing are then addressed. And it is only the African National Congress that can execute the task of turning South Africa around. I know of no other organization. Those that go around talking about ANC liability to the country, I must continue to say the African National Congress is known and seen by our people as the only organization that can take South Africa forward. And that is exactly what we are going to do as we execute